Hello, let me ask you a question. Have you ever been up late, maybe scrolling on your phone, and you see a headline that stops you in your tracks? Something like, "The one food that cures joint pain," or "Eat this to reverse arthritis in a week." It's a powerful promise, isn't it? Especially when you're living with that nagging ache in your knees, that stiffness in your hands that makes it just a little harder to open a jar, or that throb in your hips that turns a simple walk into a negotiation. You've probably seen a lot of headlines like the title of this very video. They're designed to give you a rush of hope. So as a geriatrician who has sat with hundreds of patients, people just like you, who are tired of the pain and overwhelmed by all the conflicting advice, I want to get this out of the way right now. The honest answer to the question, can one food really reverse decades of joint pain and inflammation? Is no, it can't. And I know that might feel disappointing to hear. It's not the magic bullet we all wish for, but I promise you, the truth is actually far more nuanced, and I believe far more empowering. Because while there isn't a single miracle food, the science is overwhelmingly clear that a pattern of eating, a new way of approaching your plate, can have a profound and sometimes surprisingly rapid impact on the inflammation that drives your pain. In fact, a 2015 study published in the journal Arthritis found that patients with osteoarthritis who made a significant dietary shift to a whole food, plant-based diet reported a dramatic reduction in their pain in as little as 2 weeks. Not from one food, from a new pattern. So that's my promise to you today. No clickbait, no miracle cures. Just an honest, evidence-based conversation about how we can use food, real, delicious, accessible food, to calm the fire in your joints and help you get back to the things you love. We're going to build a roadmap together, based on solid research from institutions like the Mayo Clinic and Harvard Health. First, we'll take a moment to understand what we're really fighting, that chronic inflammation. Then, we'll walk through the 7 fundamental truths of building an anti-inflammatory lifestyle, plate by plate. We'll create a practical grocery list, talk about the foods that are worth limiting, and most importantly, we're going to debunk the persistent myths about foods like tomatoes, dairy, and gluten that cause so much confusion and fear. If you've ever felt like your body is working against you, and that this pain is just an inevitable part of getting older, I'm here today to respectfully and hopefully challenge that idea. You have more control than you've been led to believe. Before we dive into our first truth, I want to offer a quick but very important reminder. While I am a medical professional sharing information based on established research and clinical experience, this video is for educational purposes and is not a substitute for personalized medical advice from your own doctor. Your health history is unique, and you should always consult with your healthcare team before making significant changes to your diet or lifestyle, especially if you have pre-existing conditions or are taking medications. Our goal today is to empower you with knowledge so you can have a more informed conversation with them. All right, let's begin. Our first truth is a foundational one. It's about shifting your entire mindset away from the supplement aisle and the sensational headlines. The truth is, the goal isn't to find a miracle food, it's to consistently dampen the fire within. Have you ever felt that? That deep, persistent, sometimes hot or burning sensation in a joint? That's inflammation. For many of us, especially as we get older, we're living with a low-grade, chronic inflammation throughout our bodies. You can think of it like a slow-burning fire, or the embers of a campfire that never quite go out. In osteoarthritis, this fire is often sparked by the mechanical stress of wear and tear, where the cartilage that cushions your joints begins to break down, causing the bones to rub and the surrounding tissues to become inflamed. In conditions like rheumatoid arthritis, it's a bit different. The immune system mistakenly attacks the joints, creating a much more aggressive fire. But in both cases, that underlying, smoldering inflammation is a primary source of your daily pain, stiffness, and swelling. I remember a patient of mine, a wonderful gentleman who came into my office with a bag full of expensive supplements. He had powders made from exotic berries, pills with rare seaweed extracts, and a tincture he'd bought online that promised to regrow cartilage. He was spending hundreds of dollars a month chasing that one miracle cure. But when I asked him what he had for lunch, he told me it was usually a hot dog and a soda from the corner store. He was so focused on adding one magic ingredient that he was completely ignoring the fact that his daily diet was actively throwing gasoline on those inflammatory embers. Our first and most important step was to help him shift his focus. The real power doesn't come from adding one exotic berry. It comes from changing the overall environment in your body so that the fire doesn't have fuel to burn in the first place. Your action step here isn't to buy anything. It's to make a mental shift. The next time you see an ad for a miracle cure, I want you to tell yourself, my goal is bigger than that. I'm not looking for a sparkler. I'm trying to put out the bonfire. Now, a red flag to always be aware of is if you experience sudden, severe, and hot swelling in a joint, especially if it's symmetrical on both sides of your body, like in both wrists or both knees. This can be a sign of a significant inflammatory flare or a condition like rheumatoid arthritis, and it warrants an immediate call to your doctor. So if we aren't chasing a single food and our goal is to change the entire inflammatory environment in our bodies, the next logical question is, how? What does that look like on a plate? This brings us to our second and perhaps most delicious truth. The Mediterranean map is your best guide. When you hear the word diet, it's easy to think of restriction, of bland, joyless food. But I want you to erase that idea. Instead, I want you to picture walking through a sun-drenched market on the coast of Greece or Italy. You see tables piled high with colorful vegetables, glistening olives, fresh fish, fragrant herbs, and baskets of nuts. That is the heart of the Mediterranean eating pattern, and it is consistently ranked by institutions like the Mayo Clinic and Harvard Health as one of the healthiest in the world, largely because it is profoundly anti-inflammatory. The science behind why this works is beautiful in its simplicity. This pattern isn't focused on one nutrient. It's a symphony of beneficial compounds working together. The fruits, vegetables, herbs, and olive oil are loaded with antioxidants and polyphenols, which are natural compounds that act like fire extinguishers in your body, neutralizing the unstable molecules that can damage cells and promote inflammation. The fatty fish provides omega-3 fatty acids, which we'll talk more about in a moment, that actively block the creation of inflammatory chemicals. And the high fiber from whole grains, beans, and vegetables feeds the good bacteria in your gut, which we now know plays a crucial role in regulating our immune system and tamping down inflammation body-wide. I think of a patient of mine, let's call her Carol, who perfectly matches the profile we discussed earlier. She came to me feeling defeated. For her, the word diet meant deprivation. It meant boiled chicken and steamed broccoli. She was a foodie. She loved flavor and the joy of cooking. When we reframed her goal as adopting a Mediterranean style of eating, something clicked. She discovered the richness of extra virgin olive oil, the zest of lemon and herbs, the satisfaction of a hearty bean soup, and the simple pleasure of grilled fish with roasted vegetables. She wasn't depriving herself. She was exploring a new world of flavor that just so happened to be calming the fire in her knees. Your action step here is to start with one simple, powerful swap. For the next week, Try using extra virgin olive oil instead of butter or margarine for at least one of your daily meals. Drizzle it on a salad, use it to saute vegetables, or dip some whole grain bread in it. It's a small step that puts you directly on that Mediterranean map. A quick note here. If you have known allergies to key components of this diet, like tree nuts or fish, it's essential to work with your doctor or a registered dietitian to find safe and effective alternatives. Now that we have our map, let's get specific. Let's fill our grocery cart. This leads us to our third truth. Your grocery list can be your most powerful pharmacy. When you walk into the supermarket, you are walking into a building full of tools that can either fuel inflammation or fight it. Let's focus on the fighters. First up, at the top of our list, is fatty fish. I know, for many, the fish counter can seem a bit intimidating or expensive, but its benefits for joint health are so well documented that it's worth a deep dive. Fatty fish like salmon, mackerel, herring, and sardines are packed with a specific type of fat called omega-3 fatty acids, particularly two called EPA and DHA. Think of these as your body's special forces for inflammation. Research has shown that they can directly interfere with the immune cells and enzymes that drive the inflammatory process. In fact, multiple studies have demonstrated that taking fish oil supplements, which are derived from these fish, can help reduce joint swelling and pain, particularly for those with rheumatoid arthritis. The Arthritis Foundation recommends aiming for 2 3 to 4 ounce servings of fatty fish per week. And don't feel like it has to be a fancy, expensive fillet. Canned salmon and sardines are incredibly affordable, shelf-stable, and just as packed with those beneficial omega-3s. Next on our list are the jewels of the produce aisle, berries and cherries. Think of deep red strawberries, brilliant blueberries, tart cherries, and blackberries. Their rich, vibrant colors are a giveaway. They are packed with compounds called anthocyanins, which are powerful antioxidants that give them their hue. Studies have suggested that these anthocyanins have a notable anti-inflammatory effect, similar in some ways to how aspirin works, by blocking certain inflammatory pathways. For instance, some research has focused on tart cherry juice and its ability to reduce pain and stiffness in people with osteoarthritis. Your action step is simple and delicious. Aim for about a cup a day of a variety of these fruits. And here's a great tip. Frozen berries are just as nutritious as fresh ones, and often more affordable, especially out of season. They are perfect for tossing into a smoothie, stirring into oatmeal, or mixing with plain yogurt. As we continue down the aisle, we're loading our cart with leafy greens. Spinach, kale, chard, collard greens, these are nutritional powerhouses. They're rich in antioxidants like vitamin C, E, and A. And some, like spinach, are a good source of K, which has been linked to cartilage health. Then we move to the nut and seed aisle. Walnuts, almonds, flax seeds, and chia seeds are fantastic. They provide a wonderful combination of healthy fats, protein, and fiber. Walnuts are a particularly good source of a plant-based omega-3 fatty acid. A small handful makes a perfect, satisfying snack. Our journey wouldn't be complete without a bottle of high-quality extra virgin olive oil, the cornerstone of our Mediterranean map. A compound in it called oleocanthal has been found to have anti-inflammatory properties that have been compared to ibuprofen. And finally, don't forget the spice rack. Turmeric and ginger in particular have been used for centuries in traditional medicine to fight inflammation. The active compound in turmeric, curcumin, is a potent anti-inflammatory that has been the subject of thousands of studies. I had a patient who started grating a little fresh ginger into his tea and adding a quarter teaspoon of turmeric to his scrambled eggs every morning. He said that after a month, While it wasn't a miracle, he noticed a subtle but definite decrease in his morning stiffness. It's these small, consistent additions that, when combined, create a powerful anti-inflammatory effect. Of course, just as important as what we decide to put into our grocery cart is what we consciously choose to leave on the shelf. This brings us to our fourth truth, which requires a bit of honesty and self-compassion. It's not about total elimination. It's about thoughtful reduction. This is where so many people get tripped up and feel like a failure. Now, which foods tend to fuel that inflammatory fire we talked about? The biggest culprits, according to a wealth of research from places like Harvard Health, are highly processed foods, sugary drinks, and refined carbohydrates. Think about things that come in a crinkly bag or a box with a long list of ingredients you can't pronounce: cookies, cakes, white bread, sugary cereals, and sodas. When you consume these, your body experiences a rapid spike in blood sugar. This spike can trigger the release of pro-inflammatory messengers called cytokines. It's like pouring lighter fluid on those smoldering embers in your joints. Similarly, red meats like burgers and steaks and processed meats like bacon, sausage, and deli meats are high in saturated fat, which can also contribute to inflammation when consumed in excess. I know how hard this can be. These foods are scientifically engineered to be hyper-palatable. They're delicious, they're convenient, and they are everywhere. This isn't a failure of your willpower. It's about recognizing what these foods do in your body and making a conscious choice to limit their role in your life. The most effective action step here is to adopt what some people call the 80-20 rule. Focus on filling your plate with those anti-inflammatory foods from our grocery list 80% of the time. That leaves 20% for flexibility, for enjoying life, for having that piece of cake without a side of guilt. A very specific, high-impact place to start is with beverages. If you drink soda or other sweetened drinks regularly, try swapping them for sparkling water with a squeeze of lemon or a splash of cranberry juice. It's a single change that can dramatically reduce your daily sugar load. And remember the red flag. If you feel you have intense, uncontrollable cravings for sugar, it might be more than just a sweet tooth. It can be a sign of underlying blood sugar dysregulation. And it's definitely something worth discussing with your doctor. Okay, let's just take a quick pause here and take a breath. We have covered a tremendous amount of ground. We've established that our real goal is to calm the body's overall inflammation, not to chase a single miracle food. We've laid out our Mediterranean map as our guide, and we filled our virtual grocery cart with powerful, delicious, firefighting foods like fatty fish, colorful berries, and leafy greens. We've also talked about the importance of reducing, not eliminating, the foods that can fuel that fire. If this is making sense, if it's cutting through the noise and giving you a clearer path forward, I would be so incredibly grateful if you could take just 1 second to tap that like button below this video. It's a small click for you, but it makes a huge difference in helping this information reach more people who are searching for honest answers. Thank you so much for that. All right, now we are ready to tackle the big myths, the fears that hold so many people back from enjoying a full and varied diet. This brings us to truth number 5. The nightshade villains are often heroes in disguise. You have almost certainly heard this one before, perhaps from a well-meaning friend or in an online forum. The advice goes, if you have arthritis, you absolutely must avoid nightshade vegetables. This family of plants includes some of our most beloved foods: tomatoes, bell peppers, potatoes, and eggplant. The theory is that they contain a compound called solanine that can trigger arthritis pain. This advice comes from a good place. It comes from a desperate desire to find a cause, something you can control to stop the pain. But here's the thing. For the vast majority of people, the science simply doesn't support this idea. In fact, the Arthritis Foundation officially lists the nightshade fear as one of the most common food myths in the arthritis community. Far from causing inflammation, many of these vegetables actively fight it. Tomatoes, for example, are one of our richest sources of lycopene, a powerful antioxidant that has been shown to have anti-inflammatory effects. Bell peppers are packed with vitamin C. These are good guys. I remember a patient, a lovely Italian woman, who had been a passionate gardener her whole life. She came to me in tears because she had given up her beloved garden fresh tomatoes, the base for all her family recipes, because she'd read they were making her hand arthritis worse. When I explained the science and encouraged her to try them again, the joy that returned to her face was incredible. She got her sauce back, and her pain didn't worsen. If anything, her mood improved, which can also impact pain perception. So here is your action step for this myth. If you've been avoiding nightshades, I encourage you to become your own detective. Reintroduce one nightshade vegetable at a time in a moderate amount. Eat some roasted red peppers one day. A few days later, have a baked potato. Pay close attention to your body. Do you notice a specific flare-up of pain or stiffness within a few hours or the next day? If the answer is no, then you can likely enjoy these nutritious foods without fear. Of course, there is always a red flag. While rare, a very small number of individuals may have a genuine sensitivity. If you consistently and reliably feel worse after eating a specific nightshade vegetable, then listen to your body. That is your personal truth, and you should avoid that food and discuss it with your healthcare provider. This very idea of individual sensitivity is crucial, and it leads us directly to two other highly controversial food groups. This is truth number 6. Dairy and gluten are not automatic enemies for everyone with arthritis. This is another piece of advice that is absolutely everywhere. Feeling achy? Go gluten-free. Joints stiff? Cut out the dairy. It has become a dominant narrative in the wellness world, and if you've tried this, you are simply doing what you thought was best for your health, based on the information you had. You were trying to take control, and that is always a commendable first step. But again, the nuance is critical. Let's start with gluten. For someone with celiac disease, an autoimmune disorder where gluten causes severe damage to the small intestine, avoiding gluten is non-negotiable. And a smaller group of people have what's called non-celiac gluten sensitivity, where they experience symptoms without having the disease. For these individuals, avoiding gluten is essential. But for the vast majority of the population, including most people with arthritis, there is no scientific evidence that gluten itself is inherently inflammatory. In fact, many whole grains that contain gluten, like whole wheat bread, barley, and farro, are key components of the anti-inflammatory Mediterranean diet. They are rich in fiber and important nutrients. The same principle applies to dairy. For those with a true lactose intolerance, dairy will cause significant digestive distress. And for some with a milk allergy, it can trigger an immune response. But for many others, there isn't clear evidence that dairy is a major trigger for joint inflammation. Some research even suggests that fermented dairy products like plain yogurt and kefir can have an anti-inflammatory effect, thanks to their probiotics, which support a healthy gut. The problem is often not the dairy itself, but how it's processed. A sugary, fruit-on-the-bottom yogurt is a very different food from plain Greek yogurt. I worked with a gentleman who had sworn off all bread and pasta, convinced it was the source of his knee pain. He was miserable, he missed his morning toast, and he saw absolutely no improvement in his joints. When we dug deeper, we realized his gluten-free diet consisted of highly processed gluten-free crackers and cookies, which were still loaded with sugar and refined starches. His empowered choice was to reintroduce high-quality 100% whole-grain bread in moderation. His pain didn't worsen, and his overall diet and satisfaction with life improved dramatically. Your action step here is to focus on quality over blanket elimination. Unless you have a diagnosed intolerance, allergy, or celiac disease, choose 100% whole grains over refined white flour. Choose plain yogurt over sugary, flavored versions. The red flag is clear. If you experience significant bloating, gas, digestive pain, or other clear symptoms after consuming gluten or dairy, that is your body sending you a strong signal. It's a reason to talk to your doctor and get properly tested, not just to self-diagnose based on a trend. Now that we've cleared up some of the biggest food myths, I want to address the elephant in the room and bring everything together. This leads us to our seventh and final truth. Your diet is incredibly powerful, but it works best as part of a team. It's not a solo act. You could be eating the most perfect anti-inflammatory diet in the world, but if other areas of your life are actively promoting inflammation, you're fighting an uphill battle. Let's talk about the most powerful teammate your diet has: weight management. I want to be very careful here. This is not about aesthetics or fitting into a certain size. This is about pure physics. Here is one of the most impactful statistics I share with my patients, a number confirmed by institutions like Johns Hopkins Medicine. For every single pound of excess weight you lose, you relieve 4 pounds of pressure from your knees. Let that sink in. Losing just 10 pounds is like taking a 40-pound weight out of a backpack you carry with you every single step of every single day. That reduction in mechanical stress not only reduces pain, but also reduces the inflammation that the stress causes. The second key member of the team is gentle movement. I know this sounds like a paradox. When you're in pain, the last thing you want to do is move. But there's a saying in my field: motion is lotion. When you move your joints through their range of motion with gentle activities like walking, swimming, or stretching, you encourage the circulation of synovial fluid. That's the natural lubricant inside your joint capsule. Movement also strengthens the muscles that support the joint, which acts like a natural brace, taking pressure off the joint itself. And the final team member, one we often neglect, is stress reduction. When you are under chronic stress, your body pumps out hormones like cortisol. In the short term, cortisol can actually be anti-inflammatory, but when it's elevated day after day, it disrupts your body's ability to regulate the inflammatory response, effectively letting that fire burn unchecked. Your action step here is to look beyond your plate. You don't have to join a gym or go on a week-long meditation retreat. Start small. Can you add one 10-minute walk to your daily routine? Can you find a 5-minute guided breathing exercise on YouTube to do before bed? These small, consistent efforts to manage your weight, move your body, and calm your mind will amplify every single good choice you make on your plate. As always, the red flag here is to speak with your doctor before beginning any new exercise program, especially if your pain is severe or you have other health conditions like heart disease. So where does that leave us? We began with a question born of hope and frustration, a question about a single magic food, and we learned that the answer isn't a simple yes or no. The real answer is a story. It's a story of empowerment. Let's just take a moment to recap the power you have gained today. You've won clarity over the confusing and often misleading clickbait. You've won a clear strategy to gently and consistently dampen the fire of inflammation. Instead of chasing fleeting miracles, you've won a practical Mediterranean map and a real-world grocery list to guide your path. you've won freedom from the needless fear of nutritious foods like tomatoes and whole grains. And perhaps most importantly, you've won the understanding that you have a whole team of powerful tools at your disposal. Your diet, your movement, your weight, and your peace of mind, all working together to help you take back control. There is no single magic food, but the truth, I hope you'll agree, is so much better. The truth is that you have the power to build an entire lifestyle, one small, delicious, and deliberate choice at a time, that quiets inflammation, reduces pain, and helps you get back to tending your garden, to playing on the floor with your grandchildren, and to living the full, vibrant life you so richly deserve. Now, I truly want to hear from you. The comments section is a wonderful community, and your experience matters. Please, take a moment and share one thing from this video that surprised you, or perhaps gave you a new sense of hope or a new idea to try. I read every single one, and your story could be the very thing that inspires someone else. And finally, if you found this honest, in-depth conversation to be valuable, please consider subscribing to the channel and ringing that little notification bell. That way, you won't miss our next deep dive into living a healthier, more empowered life. Thank you so much for trusting me with your time today. Be well, stay strong, and know that you have far more power over your health than you've been led to believe. I'll see you in the next one.